Hi, everyone. Welcome to the latest installment of our ongoing editorial webinar series, Coffee Talk. Each hour-long, information-packed episode organized by the hardworking folks at Redmond Magazine features the observations and insights of an independent expert on a wide range of tech industry topics. Many thanks to the underwriting sponsor of this episode, KnowBe4, provider of the world's largest integrated platform for security awareness training combined with simulated phishing attacks. Without their support, this series would not be possible. And thanks to you for joining us. I'm John K. Waters, Editor-in-Chief of the Converge 360 Group of 1105 Media, and I'll be your moderator. Today's topic is Kill Security Alert Fatigue with Training, Expert Tips, Tricks, and Gotchas. And our main presenter is technologist, creative, compelling content, and senior resultant, Howard M. Cohen. Before we get started, just a bit of housekeeping. This episode is being recorded for later access. Keep an eye out for an email with a link to that recording. It'll be coming your way in the next few days. We'll make some time during the talk for questions. Please type your questions into the Q&A box at any time. Our sponsors provide some extra resources you won't want to miss. They're available now on your console. And as a small thank you to the first 200 attendees who stick with us to the end, we will be sending you a $5 gift certificate to Starbucks. Now let's meet our first presenter. In his 40-plus years in the IT industry, Howard M. Cohen has held senior executive positions in many of the top channel partner organizations, and he currently writes for and about IT and the IT channel. Howard is a sought-after speaker, an insightful observer of the technology landscape, and one of our very favorite presenters. You're in for a great session. Take it away, Howard.
Thank you, John, and hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about a topic that I've spoken on extensively over the years, about how ransomware is the most popular kind of attack, mainly because it attacks people, and people are more fallible than digital devices. Today, you're going to meet a company that actually provides solutions to that problem, and I think you're going to find it very, very illuminating. As you all know, or those of you who've been with me before know, I always like to start my sessions with a word of the day. It's the writer in me. And today's word of the day is not Windows 11. I know you see that on the screen right now. But I'm trying to present a Windows 11 splash page, home screen. And have you ever gotten this error message? The problem exists between the keyboard and the chair. Please replace user as soon as possible. That comes up so often, even though you never see it as an error message on the screen, that we've come up with an acronym for it, and that acronym is today's word of the day, PEBCAC. Problem exists between keyboard and chair. Now, a lot of people don't like the use of the word PEBCAC. So I thought I would come up with a couple of synonyms for it. Here's one, picnic. Problem in chair, not in computer. EBCAC, just leave off the P. It's an error between the keyboard and the chair, and if you don't like accusing the keyboard, we could make it PEBMAC. Problem exists between monitor and chair. This next one is one that you're probably very familiar with. If you've ever heard somebody talk about the ID 10T error, if not, you'll recognize it immediately. The ID 10T error is the idiot error. Another way to put it is the layer 8 issue. You may be familiar with the 7-layer ISO OSI model of networking. Well, the user is the 8th level connecting into the application at the 7th. So when we have a problem with the user, we refer to it as a layer 8 issue. And then finally, yet another abuse of the acronym IBM, the idiot behind machine error. I've heard IBM used for I've been moved, I'll buy Mac. That was a bad one. Okay, you get the idea. We're talking about people and how they impact security on a network. Lest you think it's a small problem, a recent study showed that 88% of data breach incidents are caused by employee mistakes. And by the way, I think the use of the word mistake here is mistaken. It's not always a mistake. Unfortunately, some of these human involved errors are not errors, they were done purposefully. We'll talk more about that later. Um, Less optimistic are the folks at IBM who say it's at 95%. You know, 9.5 out of 10 breaches are involving some kind of human element in them. So that being said, oh, by the way, one more, Verizon's annual DBIR, the Data Breach Incident Report. If you haven't read it, download it. It's an excellent, excellent tool that comes out every year. They say 3/4 of breaches involve some human element. And I think they've really phrased it better than anybody. It's a human element. It may be a mistake. It may be a purposeful event. But in 3/4 of events, it involves some kind of human error. Now, I think it's important to emphasize, we're talking about human error, right? But most importantly, we're talking about errors. And the fact is, the majority of cases, it is an error. A person does something wrong. And again, people are fallible. There's just no way around that. All of us are fallible. There is nobody that doesn't make mistakes sometimes. So I think the best way to spend our time today is to focus more on the causes. What are the causes of human error in an IT environment? What is it that opens the door to security breaches that's caused by human error? And of course, the list is very long, and that's just a part of it. I could go on and on and on and on. What I thought I would do, though, is break it down into a couple of categories. The first of which is the simple vanilla flavored oops, an error, a mistake. Somebody did something wrong. It happens. Sometimes it's a skill-based error. Somebody who knows how to do what they're doing does it wrong. They just blew it. It can happen. You know, we see this in sports. We see this in medicine, unfortunately. We see it everywhere. You know, human beings make mistakes. Okay, even if you know what you're doing, even if you're really good at it, sometimes you're going to have a little fail. Others are decision-based human errors, and especially in IT, we're dealing with data, and we're dealing with the veracity of data. Sometimes it's a judgment call. You know, should we believe that this is what it says it is? Should we believe that this is accurate data? Should I shut that down? You know, should we drop our shields and let the Romulans get close? You know, I mean, it's a judgment call, and sometimes we make the wrong call. So there are those vanilla flavored, like I like to call them, that's an oops. The error cause that we've heard most about, I think, is social engineering, where the cyber criminal is attempting to fool the user, or to misdirect the user, or in some other way to manipulate the user to do something they want them to do. Probably the most famous, the most popular form of phishing that, of social engineering that everybody's heard of is phishing, right? Phishing. And what is phishing? Phishing involves an email. The cyber criminal sends out an email, and you know what? That email looks genuine. It looks like this one looks like it came from Microsoft. It's got the Microsoft logo. It's got the right colorization. It's got the right typography. It looks like a genuine Microsoft email telling you that, oh no, your password expired. And hey, we even provide this nifty, swifty, groovy little blue button so you can fix the problem. Just click here and fix the problem. Unfortunately, what we don't necessarily realize, because we don't see it, is that right below that blue button, we're showing what the link is behind that button. It has nothing to do with Microsoft. Microsoft isn't listed there. So pushing the blue button, there it is. That's the danger point. That's where you're going to get yourself into trouble, because when you push that blue button, you open the door to let the cyber criminal do anything and everything they want to. In some sense, by the way, in some phishing emails, it's an attachment that they provide. And when you double click on it to open it, you've opened the door. Now, there's phishing, which is a general attack. They just put it out there to as many people as they can get out to. And then there are cyber criminals who are attacking somebody in particular. They have a specific target in mind. We refer to that as spear phishing, which, if you think about it, that's an ugly image. You've been spear phished. It's ugly. It is ugly. There's no question about it. You feel like you failed your company. You let everybody down. You opened the door to all kinds of horrible things. And the worst of them is something we all unaffectionately refer to as ransomware. What is ransomware? Well, ransomware means that the next email you receive looks like this. Okay, if you've never received a ransomware email, God bless you, you're very fortunate. If you have, then you know what I'm talking about when I say it is one of the ugliest feelings you'll ever experience in your life. There's a certain feeling of being violated, of being betrayed, of being penetrated, and just horrible, horrible feelings all well up at once. It's downright scary. And this one is telling you the bad news. All your important files are encrypted. And boy, you don't have the key for that. You can't open that. So your data is now useless to you. They're very helpful. In the middle, you'll see a little white box that says how to buy Bitcoin so that you can pay them. How nice of them to help you pay them, and where to send that payment. At the bottom right corner, you see the clock ticking, telling you this is how much time you have left to pay the ransom. Otherwise, kiss your data goodbye. Now, there are definitely technical remedies for this. Today, you're going to see not a resurrection strategy, but rather a prevention strategy, a protection strategy to keep this from ever actually happening. And so that you don't ever have to pay the ransom or minimize the number of times you get stuck in this situation. Okay, what are some other causes of human error? Passwords. Passwords are in and of themselves a human error. Okay, it is very easy for someone to commit a user error. And to illustrate what I'm talking about, I've come up with a list, I found a list actually, of the most often used passwords this year in 2023. What do you think is the most frequently used password in use today? Show of hands, anybody? Password. More people use the word password than any other password in existence. There was a time in which they quoted it at 88% of users, then 80. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's still the majority. Yes, people are that lazy. And if they're not that lazy, they're this lazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Done. That's my password. Some people are a little more generous. They'll take you all the way out to 9. God bless them. Others, well, maybe just 8. Others, maybe just 7. Some of them stick the number 1 at the end of a password. And these days, they'd have to follow that with an exclamation point or some other special character because some passwords require them. Some are even cheaper. They just give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Others are most generous. They give you all the way to the trailing 0. And some are really lazy, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the top 9 most frequently used passwords in use today. Following this, people like to use things like their spouse's name. My password is Barbara. No, it isn't. My child's name, Kenny. No, that's the password they use. Their own first name, Ralph. Their pet's name, Fido. Emotions. My password is happy. Now my password is sad. Or food. Who doesn't want their password to be pizza? Come on. So These are the most frequent way people come up with their passwords. And we refer to all of these in general as weak passwords. That is an error in and of itself. So for those of you who are thinking, oh my gosh, I use one of those, you have committed an error, a human error that is exposing your organization to security breaches. Hopefully nobody here has done that, right? Recycled passwords are another problem. You'll notice that when you're asked to change your password and you change it to the same password you were using, you're told, sorry, you've used that already. You need to use something else. That's kind of where password 1 comes from. And followed by password 2 and password 3. It's a serious problem. The use of default passwords. Okay, so many routers, for example, especially residential routers, come configured with the username admin on the control console. And the password is admin. So you log into your new router as admin with password admin. Many people just leave it there. They never change it. Their ID and password are both admin. For the rest of the time, they use that router. And thieves know that, so if they're trying to attack you, that's the first thing they try. You know, user admin, password admin. Don't do that. Okay, so these are all mistakes we can make ourselves with passwords. Here's another mistake we can make that puts our password in the hands of somebody else. Stolen credentials. Okay, it is still popular for people to write their password, especially if it's got letters and numbers and special characters, and it's 12 characters long. They like to write it on a Post-it note and stick it under their keyboard, and nobody knows that. That's a secret. Come on. Everybody knows people do that. And therefore, if there's a cleaning person who happens to also be a cyber thief, they're checking all the keyboards at night to see if anybody stuck their password in there. Some people even put the Post-it note on their display, on their monitor, to keep it easy for themselves and, by the way, for anybody else who passes by. This is a huge mistake. In other cases, you have your password or your key on a card in your wallet, and somebody comes up behind you with a reader, and they can steal your password that way. There's many different ways to get your hands on somebody's password. There are keystroke readers. There's all kinds of technology. But sometimes users just make it so very, very easy. There are also configuration and operation errors, and this is one of my favorites. For some reason, administrators or network managers give everybody in the organization admin access or super user access to everything, so that literally anybody in the organization can change passwords, not just their own, but anybody else's too. They can add users, they can delete users, they can do anything that needs to be done or wants to be done at any time. If you think this is just, people just do that in small organizations, I've done work for large corporations that provide things like caustic chemicals and military weaponry, and they have given everybody admin rights. It's one of the most horrifying, some of the most horrifying projects I've ever done. But the point is, it's something people do. And it's something that has to be prevented and has to be avoided and just shouldn't be. Many users who are a little technically sophisticated create their own backdoor into the network so that if they can't get in through the login, they have another way to get in. If they can get in, others can get in through that back door as well. And yes, there are many who can find your back doors. There are application vulnerabilities. Applications need to be configured properly and properly hardened so they don't open doors into your network for cyber criminals who want to get in. Short of giving everybody an admin password, there is just improper management of permissions. Okay, I'll give you a great example. When a network manager has to change permissions for a group of people, and they have to go to each individual person and change their permissions on their record, one after another. It's very easy to make mistakes. It's very easy to misspell things. It's very easy to bring up the wrong person, give them permissions. Better to use role-based access control, RBAC, and put each of those groups into a role, a group, and then change the permissions for that group. Then everybody who is in that group gets changed simultaneously, saves the manager a lot of work, and prevents the possibility of a lot of mistakes. Some people get too many permissions. There is a concept called the policy of least permissions, where what you really should do is give each individual user as few permissions as you possibly can, or each group of users, as few permissions as you possibly can, while still enabling them to do their job. And if that policy isn't in place, that's something you can do today when you go back to your data center. Then there's misuse of privileged access. Some people take the privileges they've been given, the permissions they've been given, and they do things with them that they just shouldn't know to do. This is a big result of giving people too many permissions, and it can cause havoc. If you have ill-intended people in your organization, and some of you do, some of your customers do, every organization has the possibility. This can rear its ugly head. In some cases, it's a sheer mistake of improper configuration. You did not complete something, and therefore you left a gaping hole that somebody can go through. You left ports open on a router. You left hooks open inside of an application. There's misconfigured software settings as well. Also, you receive patches regularly, and you need to have a standard documented procedure for applying those patches. First, you evaluate them, make sure they won't break anything else, and then you apply them. And you do this as quickly as possible. There's a reason the patch was released, and you want to make sure that you don't fall victim to that reason. And then finally, there's misdelivery, where people configure things to send data to the wrong place, a place that you don't want it sent to. So there are many ways in which configuration can be used to create error conditions that break your security. Then there are the internal and insider threats. If you think you don't have them, the possibility just rose that you do. Don't believe for a moment that you don't. Always be on the lookout for possible insider activity. One of the simplest insider threats is a simple lack of awareness. And I'm talking about a lack of security awareness. I'll give you the grand example. There's an old story about a CEO. This happens to be that CEO's office. You'll notice two things immediately. Number one, the computer is on. And number two, the CEO isn't there. They've left for the night. You can kind of see through the window on the left that the star's out. It's dark. What you can't see is that the door is unlocked. And so in this particular story, the IT manager for this company noticed this, saw that the door was unlocked and the CEO was gone and the computer was on. So this network manager sat down in the CEO's chair, turned to the CEO's computer, and wrote himself an email on the CEO's email, telling himself that he was fired. The next day, when everybody was back in the office, this network manager stormed into the CEO's office, slammed a print of the email on the CEO's desk, and demanded to understand, why have I been fired? What did I do? And the CEO, of course, is completely confused, completely baffled as to what the network manager is talking about, and looks at him cross-eyed, like, what are you talking about? Who sent this email? I didn't send this email. At which point the network manager revealed that he did and tells him why and how he was able to. That CEO has been vigilant about security ever since to a level you wouldn't believe. He got burned. And it's very easy to get burned, not just the CEO of the company, but anybody in the company. Again, there needs to be a discipline about turning your machine off at the end of the day, locking your door, and simple things like that. Other internal or potential internal threats include malicious insiders. Now, here's a group of malicious insiders, and yes, see what they've done. The good thing they're not doing their profile, otherwise we couldn't see their crimes. No, seriously. Malicious insiders do exist. There are people, sometimes an employee you've worked with for years becomes a malicious insider because they get disgruntled. They don't get the promotion they were looking for. They don't get the raise. They get disciplined for something that they don't feel they did. Now they want to get revenge. And so they do something awful. This happens all the time. Why? People are people. They're human. They're fallible. There are also physical attacks. Okay? Somebody destroys something. My favorite was a call that I did many years ago on a truly major corporation, huge corporation. And we were up on the umpteenth floor of their skyscraper in New York. And we were in a conference room that was attached directly to their data center. And sitting there, as we were talking about security, they were bragging to us about how they don't need our services. They have all these provisions in place. Their networks are totally secure. At which point I silently got up from my chair, didn't say a word, walked over to their data center and let myself in. The door was not locked. So I just opened it. I walked in, walked over to one of their servers and put my finger on the power button. The look of horror on all of their faces was priceless. I only wish that I had taken out my camera and my phone to take a picture of them. They were spooked beyond belief. I came out and suggested there are many things we can do for them on all kinds of levels. Now, please reconsider engaging us to help them. Physical attacks happen all the time. I know Tiger teams that start by trying to break into a new client's building to show them how vulnerable they are. Don't think it doesn't happen. And then there's simple physical theft or loss of sensitive devices. If you've never left your laptop in a cab, God bless you. For those of you who have, you know what I'm talking about. It's a horrible feeling. It's like, what am I going to do now? And you go crazy trying to find the cab company and call them and see if somebody handed it in, and hopefully nobody took it, the next passenger or whatever. Terrible. And sometimes you're not looking and somebody comes along and yanks your laptop out of your bag, or your phone, or your tablet, or your smartwatch. These things get stolen and they have passwords on them. They have a lot of your security information on them. Please, be alert, stay vigilant. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of the causes. Before I run out of time, let's talk about the costs. And so this year, Business Insurance projects that ransomware will cost users $30 billion globally. $30 billion because people around the world made simple mistakes or fell for simple tricks. $30 billion. An IBM report tells us that the average breach of all kinds gets close to $4.5 million per incident. And an average payment to a ransomware attack increased by 71% last year to reach almost $1 million, $925,000, because somebody clicked the wrong thing. Horrifying, absolutely horrifying. So you end up burning money. It's just that simple. You're burning money that you could have spent better elsewhere, simply because somebody made a mistake that they could have been taught to avoid. So in talking about preventing human error, some of the ways to do it include comprehensive training, which is something you're going to hear about today. Even if you provide training, it's not a one-shot. You must regularly provide refreshers. Keep people aware. Maybe announce the latest threats that you've seen or the latest tricks that you've seen, but bring back what they learned in their original training and repeat it. Repetition builds muscle memory, if you will. You want to develop programs to advance awareness at all times that there's somebody out there looking to steal your data. And that'll hurt the company and that'll hurt you, because that $925,000 could have paid your salary and then some. And then regular penetration testing. The best way to test and see if your training is working, of course, go fishing. Break out your tackle and gear and go fishing. Send your own phishing emails to your own people and see who falls for it. There's nothing that is a more powerful inducement to be more careful than to call somebody on the carpet because they fell for your phishing email. So with that, I'm going to leave you with a simple question. When is the worst time to launch a security awareness program like the one I just described? When's the worst time? And I'll give you the answer. The answer is the worst time is right after you've paid a ransom to get your data back. Because now the problem has happened and you put protection in place. That's backwards. That's reverse. The right thing to do is put the protection in place so you don't suffer the issue of having to pay a hefty ransom. So when should you start putting that program in place? Right now, my friends. My best advice is start right now to get your program into place and make it the beginning of an ongoing effort to keep your people vividly aware that they can help protect the company simply by learning to avoid mistakes. With that, before we introduce our next guest speaker, John, do you have any questions from anybody for me?
We do have a few of those. I want to remind everybody you can still type your questions into the Q&A box at any time. Let's take the first question from a frequent flyer, Lynn, who is asking training. Hi, Lynn. We all say hi.
Hello, Lynn. Good to see you.
Training is often mentioned as a solution to security alert fatigue. Could you elaborate on how well-structured training programs can empower security analysts to better manage and respond to alerts?
Yes, Lynn. And in this case, I'm going to say I could, but I'm not gonna. And the reason I'm not going to is because the folks from KnowBe4 are going to. And they're going to get into some significant depth on that. So let's just hold off until they step up. And I think your question is going to be more than well answered.
Okay, this one is from Vivek, who's wondering, Howard, doesn't multi-factor authentication, MFA, rule out password problems?
I wish it did. I really wish it did. To some extent, I mean, it certainly reduces them, right? MFA used to be a nice option. Today, it's pretty much mandatory. Everybody wants MFA. Everybody wants multi-factor authentication. Everybody wants you to ask for that 4, 6, 8, 12-digit number to be texted to you or emailed to you or even phoned to you so that you can enter it in after your password. And the fact is that there are now exploits that can actually capture those codes. They're few and far between, and there hasn't been a lot of coverage of them yet because they're fairly obscure. But it's no longer 100%. So yeah, MFA is a fabulous thing to do. It does not eliminate the need to have users be vividly aware of their responsibility and their involvement in protecting their company and therefore their jobs.
Okay, here's one from Arnold who's wondering, Howard, how doesn't giving people different access lead to creating silos? It's a good question. Shouldn't everybody have the same access?
Well, okay, let me put it to you this way. what does somebody from the marketing department need with passwords that will get them to financial information? They can ask for that financial information, have it summarized. They don't need access to that. The fact is that silos don't get built at the user level. They get built at the departmental level. Departments have the right, and it's necessary for departments to decide how much of their data can be shared safely with members of other departments within the organization. If you gave everybody all the same rights to everything, you would have chaos, and I can prove that because I've lived through many examples of it. Better to have everybody have the least possible rights, and when they need something that they can't get at, they go to the appropriate people and ask them for a summary or something that will get them what they need to get their job done.
Okay, here's one from Michael, who's wondering, how does a password vault help with the password issue?
How does a password vault help with a password issue? Yeah, it's dangerous for me to answer that because not a lot of people agree with my answer. When you say a password vault, I assume you're talking about single sign-on or a keychain. There's a lot of different names for it. And although, yes, it boils it down to one password that you need to protect, I guess that's the answer to your question. When you have a strategy like that, there's only one password you need to protect, and that's the password to get to that vault or to get to that keychain or what have you. And that's really, really good because you should be able to memorize, even if it's 12 characters, numbers, letters, and special characters. There should be a way that you can memorize that sequence for one password and change it every few weeks or every month or so. I just have never felt comfortable with single sign-on solutions. I've always felt that you get in that one password and you've got everything. That's just me. That's not based on anything technical. It's just a gut reaction. So that's why I didn't want to answer that.
Understood. Okay, we've got one more here from. I guess we got two more. Sorry. Let's go with this one from Christopher. What are your thoughts on the whole Zero Trust initiative?
Okay, first of all, Zero Trust is not an initiative; it's a strategy. It's not a floor polish. It's a dessert. No. Anyway, it's not. It's a strategy. I can't help myself. It's a strategy, and it's a good strategy, mainly because it incorporates so many different devices, so many different protocols. It doesn't depend upon one thing like IP blocking, right? The original firewalls just blocked specific IP addresses. Big deal. You need multi-factor protection. And Zero Trust is the ultimate in multi-factor protection. So I think that that's excellent. I don't think that anybody has yet developed it to its ultimate point where it's as good as it can get. But I think it was something that was extremely necessary.
Gotcha. Okay, Wahid has a question. Hi, Wahid, another regular attendee. And I think he's referring to an earlier question where is he talking about PAM in this case? And of course, I think he means privileged access management.
I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea what he was referring to.
I love it. I love that you're secure enough to say that. Let's grab this one last question here. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
You say PAM to me, and I think of no-stick cooking. So.
No. Okay, let's wrap it up with this last question from Christopher, another different Christopher, spelled with a C. Howard, isn't AI going to replace all our people so we don't have to worry about this anymore? Uh,
You missed my session on AI. I am not amongst the people who think that AI is going to replace us because I think that AI is a misnomer. Uh, it is artificial, but it is not intelligence. It is software. And it is software that can do things that software couldn't do earlier, forming relationships between or identifying, categorizing, classifying relationships between things. But if you look at all of the AI products that are entering into the market today, half of which will be gone next week, um, they're all designed to help people do things. They're not here to replace people as much as they are here to help people do the job they're there to do faster, better, with fewer errors, and with more satisfaction. So I have no fear of AI. Now, I'm in disagreement with some fairly bright people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates who say, well, yeah, we're fine for now because it's just doing these, these software, it's kind of like search on steroids. But the day will come when they achieve super intelligence and they're smarter than we are. And that's when they may realize that human beings are the worst threat to the planet. So they're going to eradicate us, like when Skynet became alive. And listen, who knows what's going to happen then? But I think we're a ways off from that. And today's AI and today's machine learning, that simply refers to putting a lot of data in a place where the machines can get it and ingest it, categorize it, classify it, analyze it, and then use it to solve problems. And that's something people want help doing. So no, I don't think they're going to replace us. In a lot of cases, I think they're going to make us much happier about the jobs we get to do.
well, from your lips to God's ear. Thank you, Howard.
I just saw
sometimes...
comment. I just saw Wahid's last comment pop up.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
you can always unplug the machine, but by then the
Yes.
machine will have figured out another way to get power. Ha ha ha.
I know. And we'll be the
Thank you.
batteries.